Hello, everyone, and I'm ill today, but today I wanted to check out. You can't tell what mod I have loaded up, but the mod is Europa Barbarorum for Total War Rome Remastered. So, this version of Europa Barbarorum for Remastered has been out for quite a while now, a number of years. But a lot of people often say, EB hasn't been ported, it's never going to be ported. But honestly, it's been ported, and it's pretty cool. As you can see, there's three different versions of the campaign here. So the classic campaign is basically the exact same layout as the original Europa Barbarorum. So if you like that campaign map and the vibe and the development and the way it works and the progression, this is the campaign for you. I think this is the best version at the moment of this mod. There's also the expanded campaign, which adds a couple new factions, which might improve things um, in a lot of ways for you. But it's the same campaign map. And then the Imperatoris Mundi version adds the gigantic Imperatoris Mundi campaign map, which, well, I'll get into a campaign in a few minutes and I'll show you what this means. So, anyway, let's get into a classic campaign and I'll talk about the campaign map and how this mod plays on Rome Remastered. All right, so here we are in the campaign map, and as you can see, I think I have my colors on a little bit too saturated. That's why the map looks a little more saturated than usual. But um, anyway, or it might just be my bright computer screen here. So anyway, as you can see, this campaign map here in Rome Remastered looks um, pretty much exactly the same as in the original Europa Barbarorum. There are some updated textures here, as well as the sea textures. I believe this has been modded a little bit for remastered. This doesn't look like the vanilla color scheme. But anyway, this is just a ported version of the original Europa Barbarorum campaign map, and it's quite good. It's, of course, one of the greatest campaign maps I can remember from the uh, classic period of Rome Total War modding. Certainly better than the Rome Total Realism Platinum Edition map. And as you can see, we have our standard Europa Barbarorum factions. So we have the Casse in Britain. We have the Suebas in northern Germany. We have the Aedui and the Arverni as the two Gaelic tribal factions. We have the Lusitanians as the Iberian tribal faction. We have Carthage, of course, the Carthaginian Empire. We have Rome, the Roman Republic. We have Epirus, which I always enjoyed playing Epirus in the original Europa Barbarorum. We have the Kingdom of Macedon, as well as the Koinon Hellenon, so the Greek cities equivalent. And Pontus, the Getae, uh, the Seleucid Empire, Armenia, Armenia, the Ptolemaic Empire, the Sabaeans in southern Arabia, the Sarmatians, the Pahlavans, so the Parthians, the Bactrian Kingdom, and the Sakarauka. Of course, I think everyone knows my favorite factions in the original Europa Barbarorum and in EB2 as well are the ones that have the most extensive non-annoying reforms. So like I almost never play as Rome in EB because I've found a lot of the reform requirements like really like it takes a really long time, and not just a long time, but it requires a lot of busy work, like moving people back and forth all the time from certain cities. And I prefer the reforms of something like the Koinon Hellenon, where it's kind of it's a historical progression, like from a league of different city states into a real Greek style empire, or something like the Seleucids, where they become a real uh, multi ethnic Middle Eastern, Iranian, Mesopotamian, Hellenistic empire with the cataphracts. I like the Seleucid reforms. The Armenian reforms are very well developed, probably the second most developed one compared to Rome in terms of the number of steps and the progression from like a local mountain kingdom to a multi national empire in the Persian style. And then the Bactrians have a reform as well, and the Saka have a nice reform too. Well, in EB2, the Saka Rauka have very nice reforms. In EB1, it's a little more simple. You just have to take Alexandria, Iscate, or yeah, one of these cities over here. I think it's Alexandria Iscate actually, and after you hold it for a certain amount of time, you gain the Saka reforms that allow you to recruit certain units like the Saka hoplites in certain regions. Now in EB2, the Parthians have very nice reforms as well. So like you can have Indo-Parthian reforms where if you conquer India and do certain things, you can get Indo-Parthian units and economic benefits. But in EB1, the Parthians don't have as uh, dense a reform path. But in any case, they are nice enough because, you know, in the original Rome Total War, reforms were quite few and far between in terms of how they worked. And I really like the EB1 reforms. They were good for the time and two takes that a little further. Now, let's get into the expanded campaign map, and then I'll show off some more things about this. All right, so here we are in the expanded campaign, and as you can see, we're playing as a new faction. We are playing as Syracuse. So, Syracuse is, I think it actually was a planned faction in EB, but then it was scrapped for other more important factions. It has a very nice start position right in between a couple of growing empires that you might recognize in Carthage and Rome. So it's a nice faction to have indeed. But I think more important than Syracuse is the expanded campaign here adds one other faction that really fills out a part of the map that's very, very barren in 99.9% of mods for the original Total War, and that is India. So you have the Mauryan Empire. So in EB2, you have the satrapy of Taxila, which represents the Mauryan Empire. And here you just get the Mauryan Empire. So that is very cool indeed. I think it's pretty necessary to have the Mauryans, especially with the increased faction limit of Remastered. And so I know this is not a fully done, this campaign is like a work in progress. But uh, it's very good to see the Mauryans, and I'm glad that there's some work being done to fill out this eastern part of the map, because like that's what makes the Seleucid campaign. It makes it a lot more interesting because the Seleucids don't actually have any interesting frontiers except for the north, where they have Pontus, Armenia, Parthia, and then Bactria, and then in the east, they don't have anybody unless you add the Mauryans, like here, and then in the southwest they do have the Ptolemaic Empire, and then in the west they have eventually Macedon and Greece, but like in the south it's just a desert, not unless the Saba really take off. Uh, in EB2 there are the Nabateans who can become powerful, but not in EB1. So anyway, it's good to see the Mauryans here. I would like to see the Nabateans as well in this expanded version. But anyway, it's a good concept, but it's still not done because everything else is basically the same as it is I don't know if you could call it vanilla, but let's say vanilla Europa Barbarorum 1, except for the addition of Sparta and the Morians. And I think these additions do seem to be a little haphazard, at least in terms of faction rosters right now. The economy doesn't seem super balanced for Syracuse, so I'd imagine it's the same for the Morians. But anyway, let me show you the Imperatoris Mundi camp. All right, so here we are in the Imperatoris Mundi campaign, and as you can tell, it is very big. So you don't get the benefit of the expanded campaign where you have the Morians. Like, you need the Morians in this one, for sure. So this is definitely a work in progress. You need a lot more factions for this one, actually. Oh, Monktown. That's cool. Uh, Melonville. That seems very historically accurate. But anyway, um, this is a very cool map, and it's a cool idea to have Europa Barbarorum on such a map. But there has to be a lot of rebalancing done for this to work properly. I'm not sure how the economy has been adjusted for this map. Maybe it has been, but in any case, as you know, as you get older, you have less time to play Total War, unfortunately. And this campaign map looks just a little too intimidating for me. So, in something like Chivalry Remastered, where you have the big map, first of all, that big map is much smaller than this. There's a lot more localized campaign goals, like we played as Aragon in one of the Let's Plays, and it's very cool to do like small campaigns like that, and it feels really big when you've conquered like, I don't know, the Pyrenees mountain provinces as, let's say, the Kingdom of Aragon, and then you get reform and you become the Crown of Aragon. That's super cool. It feels very rewarding. Now, this one where you're playing as the Saba and you're like really, really far removed from everybody, and the map is 10 times bigger than the original one, it already feels a little barren in the original one, but uh, it just seems a little lonely, especially like the Seleucid campaign in the east. Like, you're just going to be fighting rebels the whole time. I uh, I don't think the mod is ready for this map, but maybe there's a lot of people who like these huge maps, and I like it too. But the campaign has to be designed for the huge. Something like Chivalry, it kind of worked with a bigger map, and of course I made and others made tons of adjustments. But I don't know for Europa Barbarorum, and also some of the start positions are not fully updated for the big map either to make fully accurate as they sort of are in the original EB1. So while this is a super cool idea, I don't recommend playing this campaign just yet. But in any case, this is what I wanted to say about EB Remastered. So I'm going to play this mod and I'm going to showcase like some of the reforms and how those have been ported. And yeah, again, this was my favorite mod for a long time, and it could very well still be. But yeah, this is the unofficial port of Europa Barbarorum for Total War Rome Remastered. If you enjoy videos about the historical Total Wars and their mods, like Europa Barbarorum or Broken Crescent or Tsardoms, consider liking this video, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.